Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Monday, September 25th, 2023 council meeting. We have no closed items this evening, so the recommendation is that we convene in open meeting starting at 7 p.m. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Cressman. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. For a moment of reflection, I wanted to touch on the Day of National Truth and Reconciliation, which is a statutory holiday in Canada that was established to recognize and commemorate the tragic history and ongoing legacy of residential schools. It will be observed on September the 30th each year, making it this upcoming Saturday. The day serves as an opportunity for all Canadians to reflect upon the history and experiences of Indigenous people who were affected by the residential school system. Residential schools were institutions that were operated by the Canadian government and various religious organizations with the aim of assimilating Indigenous children into Euro-Canadian culture. The schools had a devastating impact on Indigenous communities, resulting in the loss of language, culture, and identity, as well as physical and emotional abuse. The National Day of Truth and Reconciliation provides a platform for education, remembrance, and reconciliation. It is a time to honor the survivors, their families, and communities, and to acknowledge the intergenerational trauma caused by the residential school system. The day also encourages Canadians to learn about Indigenous history, culture, and contributions, and to engage in meaningful dialogue and actions towards reconciliation. If we could just take a moment of silence to acknowledge that day, please. Thank you. And in recognition of National Truth and Reconciliation, this Saturday, September the 30th, I invite the community to come and participate in the Township of Wilmot Walk for Truth and Reconciliation. The walk is an opportunity to learn, reflect, and acknowledge the historical injustices faced by Indigenous communities and to express our continued commitment to reconciliation. The walk will start at the northwest side of the Schmidt Woods entrance at the Wilmot Recreation Complex on Saturday, September 30th at 8:30 a.m. We will be meeting at the west front end of the parking lot, and all are welcome to attend and create a space for and build relationships with the Indigenous community. Following the walk, we will also have refreshments and food provided by Cedar Spoon Catering. I will now pass it over to Councillor Wilkinson for our territorial acknowledgement, please.
Thank you. We've gathered in Wilmot Township on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Mississauga peoples, and we also want to acknowledge the importance of the Dish with One Spoon Covenant, a peace agreement made between Indigenous nations before the Europeans arrived. It characterizes our collective responsibility to each other and Mother Earth. We should take only what we need, leave enough for others, and keep the dish clean. And by acknowledging this covenant in the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples, we are reminded of our important connection to this land where we live, learn, and work together as a community.
Thank you. Councillors, does anybody have a disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act to declare? Okay, seeing none, there are no additions to this evening's agenda. The recommendation is that we adopt the agenda as presented for September 25th, 2023. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. The recommendation for the minutes of the previous meeting is that minutes as September 11th, 2023 as presented be adopted. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any comments or questions on those minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. We have no public meetings or presentations this evening, and our consent agenda is item 11.1. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Sadhu, seconded by Councillor Martin. Sorry, I forgot to ask, did anybody want to pull the consent agenda item? Okay, not seeing that, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. And on to reports. So 12.1 is the draft corporate communication strategy, and the recommendation is that the draft corporate communication strategy be received for information. May I please have a mover to get this on the floor? Moved by Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Wilkinson, and I will now turn it over to CAO Chambers to introduce the report.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. The report before you this evening is to introduce the draft corporate communications strategy for the township. The strategy was developed by Red Brick Communications and was informed through engagement with council, staff, and community stakeholders, as well as investigating municipal communication best practices. The project was initiated in 2022 and was near completion before the municipal election. However, it was temporarily paused to accommodate input from the incoming council, which has now been incorporated into the draft document, and hopefully you will see your feedback reflected there. Andrea Montgomery and Jacqueline Demers from Red Brick are here this evening, and they will present an overview of the strategy. But first, I'll provide a brief background on why the township decided to undertake this work, and I'll speak a bit about how our communications function is currently resourced to provide some additional context in advance of the presentation this evening. I'm going to start by saying that in my almost 30 years of working in municipal government, there has been a complete revolution in the way we communicate. When I started in municipal government, the internet was not a thing. And technology is rapidly evolving. We've adopted digital tools, and the rise of social media have made municipalities recognize the importance of establishing two-way communications to share important information with the community about what the township's doing, about our services and programs, but also to receive input from citizens on the matters that affect them so that we can make more informed decisions. Similarly, we need tools to communicate internally and receive feedback from our staff to ensure that we have a well-informed and engaged workforce. In this digital age where people are used to and expect to have access to information at their fingertips within seconds, we really needed to develop a plan to evolve our township communications function to meet this new expectation and to understand what resources are needed to execute the plan. We need to shift from being reactive in our communications to proactively sharing information with the community and to develop channels that will allow us to listen to the community. In terms of our current resourcing, the township's communication function has had limited dedicated resources and has been pretty slow to evolve. A part-time communications specialist role was introduced in 2019 and was upgraded to full-time status in 2020. And the primary responsibilities of that position included managing our social media platforms and handling basic communications, with the responsibility for the website sort of being divided between information and legislative services and development services. So in 2021, that position became vacant. We restructured it again and transformed it into a digital media coordinator, website administrator role, with the intention of hiring another communications position to address those broader corporate communication needs. And council did approve a corporate manager of communications and strategic initiatives in the 2023 budget. And I'm very pleased to announce that Donna Kell will join the township on October 2nd in that role. So the digital media coordinator and website administrator role is currently vacant, and we want to review that role before we begin recruitment to ensure that the position description reflects the skills and competencies and job duties required to advance the strategic priorities that are identified in this plan. And over the last several months, we have had no dedicated communication resources. So it really has been a side of the desk activity for all of us. And Red Brick has been on contract on a fee-for-service basis, supporting our day-to-day needs. So with the incoming manager of CSI, as I like to call it, sounds kind of cool, will play a pivotal role in advancing the priorities and actions within the plan. So we're recommending that the plan wait to be adopted and be brought back before council, allowing Ms. Kell to have an opportunity to review and have input into the prioritization of the plan, because I think there are a number of things in there that we can advance much more quickly now that we have a dedicated resource on board. So tonight we're presenting the draft strategy to council for information purposes only, and we'll bring back the final document at a future council meeting. And this is going to allow time for you, council, to have your input into the strategy before it's adopted, as well as the public. And so once Donna is on board, we'll develop a plan for seeking additional community and council input on the plan. So with that, I will turn it over to Andrea and Jacqueline to present the strategy, and then we can take questions following the presentation.
Good evening. So I'm Andrea Montgomery, as you may remember. Thank you very much for having us back, and through you, your worship, we're pleased to be here to present the current draft of the communication strategy and give you a little bit of a sense of the rationale behind it, and share with you the key priorities that are within it. So as you review it over the coming days and weeks, you'll have that context, and we look forward to bringing it to a place where it's finalized. And it's exciting that you have now a communications manager who's about to be on board. We actually know Donna Kell from our experience working in municipal government, and she was a manager at City of Burlington when I was at Halton Region. So I had worked a little bit with her in that context for sure. So you're bringing on somebody with a lot of good municipal experience. She's been in this space for a very long time. So I think that'll be a wonderful addition, and absolutely needed addition for the township in terms of where you're at right now. So we are just going to deliver for you or explain a little bit in terms of where we came with the strategy, share as well a little bit of a highlight from what we heard in our individual conversations with you to wrap that piece up, and talk a little bit about where the current trends are. Sharon already mentioned that our landscape is changing dramatically. With just a couple of weeks ago, we believe it was Metroland Papers has announced that there's no more print newspapers, and that was just a full stop that day. So that in and of itself has made a significant impact, especially on smaller communities that really relied on that weekly print paper. And I'm sure communities that we work with on a regular basis are going to be feeling that. Red Brick's actually going to be bringing together some communications leaders soon, hopefully, to talk about what does this mean and where do we go from here. So anyway, all that to say that is changing. We are seeing different trends in technology, all of that. And so we'll talk about that in terms of where that's headed with the strategy. So if you want to go to the first slide. Jacqueline, do you want to talk about?
Good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight to present the draft communication strategy. I know we've been working on this project for some time, and I'm sure you and we as well are excited and looking forward to getting it to the next stage. So just to set the stage a little bit with some context, so municipal communication strategies, of course, don't exist in a vacuum. They should reflect where the community is at today and their hopes and aspirations for the future. So our goal really is to flesh those things out in the strategy and start to bring them to life a little bit. Part of our work over the past few months or more has been hearing feedback from residents, from staff, from stakeholder groups in the community, and from the previous council as well as the current council. And a lot of that feedback was around, what the pain points are, where people think things could be improved, and where we want to go for the future. Go ahead to the next one. So we found through that research that Wilmot's community is highly engaged. They want to hear from the township. They want information on services, on programs, and things that are happening, and they want to have a say in township matters. We also acknowledge, and people that we spoke with acknowledge this as well, that the township has been faced with some significant sensitive issues in the past 3 to 4 years. It's also clear that Facebook is a key tool for residents to engage with the municipality and then also to engage with each other. So that's both on the Township of Wilmot Facebook page and then on other non-official like town groups and pages. And we find that that is common with municipalities that we work with, that while Facebook seems to be in the social media landscape one of the declining platforms, it is still the prominent social media platform for use by municipal governments and for residents to communicate with their municipal government and about their municipal government. We also know that the township is still in the very early stages, or the early stages, of establishing an effective communications function. The strategy is a first for Wilmot. It'll be the first corporate communication strategy developed, and it's a starting point for more proactive and strategic communications going forward, and it will take some time to get to a place where those functions are well developed. You can change the, okay. So all of that said, you've dealt with some contentious issues. Residents, they like to communicate with you on social media, and you're still in the early stages. However, expectations are still high. Residents still expect information to be communicated with them quickly and easily. They want to find information in the places where they usually communicate. So on social media, they want to be able to go to your website and find what they're looking for quickly. We also know that residents want to have a meaningful voice in your general township matters and activities. And we also know at the same time that groups of people have become more polarized just generally. It's easier than ever to publish information, and that contributes to sometimes issues or matters becoming more polarized and divisive than maybe they would have been in the past. And that's a trend across municipal governments. We're also in a time where our province is growing. There are growth targets for municipalities across the province. There's a lot of building going on in order to meet those growth targets. And that's a big change for a lot of people, and change is scary and change can be hard. And municipal governments are often tasked with communicating information at the local level about local changes that people are just not going to be happy with, sort of no matter what. And that is a challenging environment that we all find ourselves in, but it is going to be around for the next few years at least as communities grow and change. You can go to the next one. Okay, and so when we spoke to you back in March, we presented a summary of the research that we had completed to date, and that included conversations with the previous council, and then since that time we've spoken to all members of council here today. So I just wanted to present some key themes that we heard from you. And one key theme that emerged across all of our conversations was a strong commitment to improving communications, to improving engagement, and many of you made those commitments as part of your election campaigns. It was part of why you wanted to get into municipal government and have a seat at the table and have a seat on council. You're committed to improving, to doing better, and to be more consistent with communications with residents. We also heard that there was a desire for formal processes for council with clear roles and responsibilities, so people know, what they're doing, when they're doing it, and who should be doing it, and also a desire for consistent training on policies and procedures, again, so that everyone is kept up to speed and sort of current on what's happening now and what should be happening in the future. We also overwhelmingly heard from everyone that there is a desire for high quality information from staff and also timely information from staff. Getting things, having information with enough time to review, to sit with that information will help with your decision-making process, and it was something I think we heard from every single person. We also heard a desire for increased communication support for council in particular, in addition to the corporation, to help with things like messaging and briefing notes and communicating with residents and things like that, that as residents' expectations grow, you'll also need more resources in order to deliver on those expectations and promises. And in order, again, to deliver on those expectations and promises, I think council by and large understands that we need to have a broader reach and a more planned and strategic approach to communications. It has been largely tactical to date. So when we are able to take a step back and really approach things through a strategic lens, that's when we can see some success. There's also a desire to build greater community trust through engagement and through communications, and a desire for stronger positive storytelling and a better website and a better social media presence. A lot of council members that we spoke to said that a lot of the information they hear from residents, and this isn't just something that happens in Wilmot, but people often call when they're upset about something or have an issue they want to discuss. But it's helpful for you to be able to point to some strong, positive stories from the township when you are communicating with residents. And right now, Wilmot's not doing an excellent job of communicating some of those positive things that are happening, that staff are doing, that council members are doing, and just good things that are happening in the community. Okay, so we're just going to talk pretty broadly about some findings from speaking with comparable municipalities, and then some best practices and trends just across the municipal communications landscape, and then we'll get more into the meat of the strategy. So comparable municipalities, so Red Brick does quite a bit of work in the municipal sector on things like communication strategies, communications reviews, and as part of that work we talk to lots of municipal governments. And so when we're talking about municipalities that are comparable to Wilmot, we're thinking about municipalities that are likely a similar size, might have a similar population demographic. And three key areas of focus for comparable municipalities are digital storytelling and transformation. So Andrea mentioned the loss of the Metroland print newspapers and just a general trend in the last 10 years or so of a decline in local news. And that has necessitated municipalities needing to turn into sort of their own newsroom, needing to tell stories in new ways and to reach people where they're at, and that often involves digital storytelling. Public engagement, there's a lot. If there's one sort of key trend, I'd say it's probably public engagement and investment in public engagement tools to continue to build that trust with residents who, again, are expecting to have a say in municipal matters. Customer service alignment is another key trend. So your customer service folks are obviously on the front lines. They're often the first point of contact for someone who's reaching out to the municipality, and customer service teams should be aligned with the overall broader communication strategy, also briefed on any particular issues. They should have messaging in their back pocket so that everybody is on the same page. And we find that high-functioning teams in municipal governments, they most often work on a centralized model. So there's one communications department with a manager or director, and then people to support that manager or director, as opposed to having communicators within each department. They often have a seat at the most senior, or at the senior-most leadership table, so there is a strong relationship with the CAO. There's good communication there, and they are, at the level where they get briefed on issues quickly. They are able to advise senior leaders sort of early on in at least in the issues management space. So they have clear processes and planning and measurement tools. Of course, they know who's going to be doing what and when, and then also they have really good metrics in order to analyze how something went and then perhaps pivot as needed going forward. They focus on strategy first and then tactics. So even if we're talking about, a small social media campaign, they take a step back, think of the strategy, what is it that we want to achieve, what do we want people to remember in 5 years' time, and then we start developing tactics and rolling those out. So it's always a strategy first, then tactics approach. Functioning like a newsroom, I touched on that a little bit already, and then again, audience-focused tools and tactics. Of course, we want to go where people are. If majority of your residents are using Facebook, why open a TikTok account? We have to make sure that we are reaching people where they're at, because people want information and they want it quickly and easily.
Yeah, so some of that comparable municipal data also comes from, we were mentioning that we've done a lot of research and communications review projects, that kind of thing. I think I added up, I tend to be the one leading those projects, and I think I've spoken to at least 40 municipalities in depth over the last sort of 4 years. So this is not just, surveys or things like that. These are like hour-long conversations with one individual and really understanding kind of the best practice in the municipal space. And when you go to the next slide, as we look sort of broadly about what is happening in our profession, what's happening in public relations and communications, all of this stuff we've sort of already touched on. But this piece about reputation, and I don't know if you probably won't remember, but when we were here before, I talked about how communication is actually about managing relationships, and that this is a two-way dialogue. So that piece is really coming to the forefront. I was at a Canadian Public Relations Society annual conference where we talked about some of these trends, and just the ongoing theme about how communications is really about relationship building. It's about trust building, and that is sort of the core of what we do. And so we're looking to fill that gap in trust. But there's also a piece around listening. So what we tend to see, and especially in smaller municipalities that have limited resources, it's really just they're trying to keep the lights on, trying to get the information out the door, and then we're missing the opportunity for that two-way piece, for listening, the opportunity to really listen. So where can we enhance and elevate that piece of it? The AI piece is also very interesting because it has come, it's arrived. Municipalities are struggling with what do we do with this thing when we see sort of chat deep GPT, and we have a generation coming up that's ready to use it, and municipalities are sort of figuring out what does that mean for us. We need to it was kind of like when social media first came out in 2008 or 9 or whenever that was, and some municipalities shut the door and closed off Facebook and Twitter from staff being able to use it. Eventually they slowly got to it. Today we're seeing the exact same reaction. Some municipalities are shutting down ChatGPT, and we anticipate that eventually they'll have to open those doors because it is a reality of what we're facing. But as we're thinking about this strategy, you will see in there some actions around thinking about AI and starting to consider where that goes. We need to be keeping these things in mind. So this strategy looks at the next 3 to 4 years, and what does it look like down the road. So I just want to make mention of some of these trends. And if you go to the next slide, what does this mean for us? Again, it's about relationships. It's about our communications and Donna's role being really critical in terms of demonstrating who the organization is, what you're about, the values that you hold, and increasing this idea of inclusive listening, telling a better story, aligning with strategy, and having stronger metrics. So all of that really drives, the best practice from municipalities, the best practice from the profession, drives what you see now in the strategy. If you go to the... I might have brought up this slide before, but this is eventually where we want to get to. I'm not going to, we can share this presentation you have, but this is where we want to go. Right now, we're in a position at the township where we're building to get to this space. So we're laying the foundation. So we'll go, so the strategy itself, continue. This is where the vision comes from, right? So we look at what is your current state, where are you at? And that's why you see the vision as being a communications function that lays the foundation for success for a more engaged and informed community. And that we're really in a point where we want to strengthen how you are sharing information, how you're getting out timely and accurate information and sharing stories and successes, and so more people feel like they're heard. So this is all rooted in kind of where you guys are at right now and where there's potential to grow from there. And we're not in a space for municipalities like, let's say, the city of Guelph, for example, who have done strategies in the past. They just refreshed their strategy, and I think it's their third or fourth, I want to say, at least, that they've done. So it's common practice that we start with something that sort of gets the ball rolling. After 3 or 4 years, we review it, see where we're at, and we build another one similar to a strategic plan for the corporation. So that's where we're at. We're at a starting point for you guys in terms of having your first ever plan. The principles around it, I don't think you'll be surprised, but we do like to have some core principles that really guide where communications goes and gives them sort of a sense of value. And so we're talking about timely, positive, respectful, inclusive, consistent, accessible and clear, all the things I think you would expect to see. Yep. So the 6 priorities, similar again to a strategic plan. These all should support the corporation's goals at the end of the day. That's the idea, is that communication supports what the organization is looking to achieve. Number 1, you're already starting in, so you have invested in a new resource. You're going to be thinking about what does that second resource look like, and how do we build on sort of this keeping the lights on, so to speak, approach that we've been doing recently, and build on, you know, what those positions could be in the strategic voice that you've been looking for. Establishing a strong proactive function. So you can't really lay or move more broadly until you look internally. And how are we working with each other internally? How are departments sharing information? Is communications getting fed all the information? How are they doing that in a timely way? Are people sort of thinking from a communications lens? That's really what that one is about, is how do we get processes and policies, clear roles, clear responsibilities, all of that stuff, so everybody's working together efficiently, because it doesn't rest, it's not going to rest on Donna's shoulders. It rests on everybody across the organization to be communicators on behalf of the township. They are out there in the field working every day. They're interacting with constituents, and so they have a pulse as well, and they can share information. They can be champions similar to all of you in this room. So we want to take advantage of that. We heard very loud and clear, of course, that you here on council want to be more informed, have better alignment in terms of the stories that are being told, play a role in being able to, you are influential in the community, absolutely. So how do we make sure you've got the information and access to the information that you need, that you can answer questions in a timely way, and that you're not feeling like you're kind of fumbling or looking for answers in enough time, so that you feel informed and feel confident with the information you're sharing. So there's actions within the strategy to improve that alignment and make sure that that process is clear for you as well. Strengthening positive storytelling, we've touched on that before, but there's so much good work, and we hear this one, I think, is in every single municipal communications strategy that I've done, because it's tricky. There is so much work that's being done, and staff are out in the door, outside doing their work every single day, but there's so much happening that it's hard to get that fed in strong ways so that you can tell a really good story about the value of taxpayers' dollars to see municipal workers, you know, creating a higher quality of work every single day for their communities, higher quality of life for the community. So we want to get in touch with those stories and tell them in a better way, with more video, with stronger visuals, you know, getting on top of them, so we tell them in multiple ways, and recognizing that you want to be more visible as we move into the 5th priority there, of being visible in the community with the media, being visible, you know, in front of the community, and having staff sort of be seen. Again, that sort of shows, you know, if we show somebody putting up a stop sign and saying, listen, today we're out, you know, improving road safety, and here is John, you know, putting up the sign. Let's humanize who we are as an organization, so we're more approachable. So these are real people doing really good work. And then, of course, we talked about public engagement. That's a key area of focus for many municipalities. There's opportunity to develop a stronger sort of corporate framework, build some more stronger strategic approach to public engagement, give staff who lead those efforts toolkits and templates and all of that kind of thing, so we take a stronger approach, and that is more meaningful for the public. That's what they say that they want. That's what each of you has asked for. It does take time, it does take resources, it takes some competency building, but we can get there, and there's a lot of actions within the strategy as well around those pieces. Can we do it all at once and do it all in the next 3 or 4 years? Again, we're laying that foundation. We're looking at the pieces that might be realistic for you for now, and the timing that you see in the strategy was developed before Donna was hired, so it was a little bit of a shot in the dark in terms of where you're at. We're confident we can move some of those up, and I'm sure Donna will want to get moving on a number of things that maybe we put for later on. So we were being a little bit cautious on that side, but you know, this is any communication strategy is meant to be flexible, and is meant to be a little bit iterative as you go through the process, and Donna will certainly have some good experience to bring to the table on that as well. And finally, just to close it all off, any strategy needs to have some way of measuring its success. So this is just a highlight of some of the things you'll see in there, but the strategy, of course, includes measurement and evaluation to give us a sense of, are we making are we making progress? Are we moving the bar in any way? Where do we need to adjust? All of that stuff. So that is built in there as well. With that, we are open to taking some questions.
Thank you very much, ladies. Councillor Cressman.
Yes, very informative. And so as you were talking about Guelph, I've got the impression that the strategic plan and the strategic communication plan are kind of wound together or intertwined, and one's the communication plan supports the strategic plan and making people aware of what is the goals and objectives of the organization of the township in the period of time that's allotted for this council and over the next number of years, because you're really trying to position the township for success going into the future. And so I see the two being cohabitating kind of the same space and married together, so to speak, to deliver on that promise to the constituents.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and through you, I mean, some municipalities are still building their strategic plan. We're working on a comm strategy for another municipality, and they're not quite there yet on their updated strategic plan. But there are still pieces that can move, and certainly when you have like I said, inside the building where the departments are working well together, they know what their annual action plans are, they know what their work plans are. You know, we want them to be meeting with communication as soon as they know that, so we can develop, you know, calendars and be prepared for what's coming and be thinking up front and ahead of time on what things are happening. And when you do have that strategic plan in place, for sure, the communication strategy should be helping you achieve that and rolling those bits out, no question. And making sure that the community is aware that you are making progress and achieving the things that you promised you would do through the strat plan. For sure.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, appreciate the report. When are we expecting to see a full report? Just out of curiosity, ballpark.
So I'll give that to Sharon because I think we want to open the door for some feedback here, and I'll let you lead how long you're going to like.
So the report that's attached to my report this evening forms the basis of the communication strategy. I feel that it would be beneficial to wait until Donna comes on board, look at the prioritization of the plan, and it would probably be beneficial for her to develop a bit of an engagement strategy around the plan itself to get the community feedback as well as council's feedback into the finalization of the plan. So, you know, whether that takes a month or so to post that online, gather a bit of feedback, bring it back to the council agenda, and then have you give it its final adoption is how I would see it going.
Appreciate that. Through the chair, a follow-up, if I could, please. Is there anything in your experience that you're looking at that we could act on immediately?
Yeah, I mean, there are things in terms of, we're already working every day on some of your communications places, so we could certainly reach out to different departments that we're in touch with on a regular basis and look to them for, you know, how could we make this faster or easier. We've already had some of those conversations in terms of if they're sending us materials, how that could be better, and provide even some templates for social media and that kind of thing. I think in terms of actions right now, we see ourselves really wanting to touch base with Donna kind of as soon as possible, get her up to, I think your main thing is to get her up to speed as quickly as we can, and to help her understand sort of where we were coming from with the strategy, and then get her moving so that we can get this thing finalized to a place that you're comfortable. And then really look at next steps. So I do think that public engagement, coming up with a framework for public engagement would be an important first step, along with her media relations and establishing sort of a stronger relationship with the local media that are still here. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, with every communication strategy, we like to include some sort of quick wins, because, it's a long time coming. You're eager to get going. I understand that. So anything that involves, scheduling a regular meeting, setting up a regular email, a newsletter, things like that, those are the things I'd prioritize right away to get going on. Something like developing a community engagement framework, like that's going to take a little bit more time. But actionable things, I'd say, newsletters, emails, and like Andrea said, some of the work we're doing on social media, creating templates, things like that, those I would highlight and say move forward on quickly.
CAO Chambers.
Thank you. Just through the discussions, through the hiring process with Donna, she does come with a lot of experience and has worked very closely with both staff, CAO and senior level staff to advance communication priorities, but also very closely with mayors and councils. And so she has some really great ideas around how to engage with council, and I would expect those would be initiated immediately. She said depending on the municipality she's been in, there are different expectations from members of council and mayors, but she discussed having a weekly meeting with the mayor to talk about emerging issues and really keeping her pulse on that. And then we also would have her sitting at the corporate leadership team meetings each week so that she's understanding what we're working on as a team. And she's talking about ensuring that we have, a number of media releases going out every month to tell our story, and developing community engagement frameworks. We're jumping on board with the region on the Bang the Table software, which is a community engagement platform that is, it's branded across the region as Engage Waterloo, so it would be Engage Wilmot, and starting to put some of our projects and things on there so that we can engage the community on projects that we're working on, and it has metrics and reporting so that we can report back on how many people have engaged as well. And then, a key focus is going to be hiring her support staff initially as well to get that moving and to ensure that we have appropriate resources going forward. And then the other piece of that is tying in the strategic initiative piece of the role, which I've had in other places that I've worked in. I think it fits very well together, as you mentioned, Councillor Pressman, because it involves engaging the community into strategies that we're developing, but it also looks at what we're doing across departments. It ties into the annual business planning process. It takes all of the strategies that we've developed across the organization and brings them together, and then develops a plan to communicate out to the community on what we're achieving in all of those plans, master plans, corporate strategy and things like that. So there's a lot of work to do. But I think, bringing on somebody with Donna's experience is really getting us a leg up in moving forward with some of that work.
Councillor Dunstall, and then we'll go back to you, Councillor Wickham.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Having a higher average of the 55-plus community, higher than the provincial as well as the national average, I certainly find constituents don't always either have access to Facebook or social media or just don't feel comfortable using it. So that's going to be one of the challenges that Wilmot's going to have. I'm making the assumption that there will be some magic way of communicating with people who don't have social media in a timely manner.
Yeah, through you, there's no question. there's no magic bullet for every audience, unfortunately. And yes, we cannot rely fully, and we certainly heard that from all of you across the board, that we have to be there, that we have to be cautious that we're not overly reliant on Facebook and digital media, and there's no question about that. And there are ways, what I'll say is, when we did the engagement, what was wonderful with you, with this township, that we haven't seen quite as often in some of the other municipalities, was your stakeholder engagement. We were able to speak, we had 3, I think, stakeholder engagement sessions representing 14 different community groups. And I did another project not that long ago where we struggled to get even one focus group up and running. So what's fantastic, and the opportunity you have before you, is to leverage some of those groups. They're keen to be, a part of working with the township, and there may be opportunities to leverage some of the ones that particularly reach out to some of the older adult communities. But there's lots of different sort of creative ways beyond just digital to, of course, to be able to reach them. If, that we wouldn't get very far if we only relied on those channels. So hear you loud and clear for sure, that's something ahead for Donna and hopefully the new resource to be thinking about as well, and how do we get to those audiences.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Yes, through the chair, I'd like to thank Councillor Dunstall for actually bringing that up. It's a perfect segue to exactly what I was going to speak on. I did make a note here that in the report, you talked about household mailers, that they should potentially be reserved for important initiatives because the cost can be prohibitive. But I'm thinking when we say there's no magic bullet that catches all, there's certainly one that can hit every household, and that's literally putting mail in the mailbox. I'm looking at the cost and I'm seeing $3,000 to $5,000 per mailer, and I'm thinking maybe if that's something that we can approach quarterly, actually isn't that much of an impact at the end of the day, because we see our federal and provincial counterparts doing this fairly regularly, and certainly present the option where maybe we can start there and then opt out and say, you could get a virtual version of this as opposed to printing out a flyer every quarter. But on that note, I'd actually almost like to throw an amendment on there, if I could, in addition to us receiving this. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's for information.
Yeah, we are receiving this for information, but potentially to direct staff with the budget season upcoming to inquire what department would facilitate and what a potential budget would be to facilitate putting out a quarterly mailer on behalf of council to sort of show township news, business, and results.
So it doesn't need to be an actual full amendment. Staff can take that as a direction, so they will investigate that for us and bring that back during budget season.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other questions or comments, councillors? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Oh, do you have another question?
Just wanted to
Yes.
add on the mailer. So mailers can be a little bit controversial because some people rely on them, getting things in print in their mailbox. Other people are like, this is trash. People don't want junk mail, things like that. And the price that we included the estimate in there, so that'd be like a one-page thing, so you'd have to think about length and all of that stuff too, but obviously staff can look into that. But I will give you a recent example from the municipality in Simcoe County that we worked with, where we were trying to get people out to a public engagement initiative, and they sent a postcard to every residential address, so about 13,000 households, and they got about 70 people that came out to their engagement, which is good. It is good. We were happy with that number, but it is also, like we said, it's not a magic bullet, but quarterly, something like that, for an important initiative, it is certainly an option, and it can reach those groups, especially having a higher proportion of adults over 55 in this community.
I'll just add one last thing on that, but to balance the environmental piece on that. So municipalities, of course, there's a perception piece. You want to play a leadership role on an environmental scale, so those are usually the conversations. And when we did this engagement, actually, one of the questions, one person on a stakeholder session said, yeah, I'd love to get more stuff in the mail. And then we talked about the balance of budget with environment. And at the end of the conversation, the full group said, yeah, we don't want any more things in our mail. So it's all of those things where it's not always cut and dry, that we just want to get things out the door. And maybe there are certain audiences you can target, so you don't have to do the full population. Obviously, there's lots to consider, but we just plant those seeds as we're thinking about those next steps.
Councillor Cressman.
Oh, remember this time, through you, Mayor. In terms of the communication within these walls and within departments, because everybody has a job to do and people tend to get siloed over time, where does that responsibility lie, or where does it, at whose feet does that fall? Is that Sharon's as the CAO's responsibility to have everybody be transparent one to another, or is it the communication? Where do you see that, or is it a combination of both?
Through your worship, I would suggest that it's multifaceted for sure. We do know that where leadership sets that as a key priority, there's much more focus. We also like it when a communication strategy is endorsed by council, because that also gives it more weight. So when you have a document now that exists, that will, show and demonstrate to staff that we're taking this seriously. When you have leadership that kind of make it a priority and set those expectations for their teams to be sharing information, to be engaging with the communications team on a regular basis to set up those processes, that makes a big difference as well. But absolutely, Donna will have some work to do in terms of educating people. I mean, they're not somebody who's working on roads every day, doing public works stuff. They're not trained to think about communication. So of course, Donna will have a big role to educate, inform, talk about what is the role, what's in and out of scope for us for communications, and make that really clear. How do we make it easy for them to share information, because they are busy building, fixing roads or running the rec facility or whatever it is. We have to make it easy and respect people's timelines as well. So it's all of those things, but when they work together and when there is some clear role modeling and expectation from the top, that makes a big difference in success along the way.
Yeah, I just want to follow up through you, Mayor. I didn't see it as an issue between infighting or anything, but I just wanting to know, as we aspire to move forward, we want to create an environment where it can be prosper, and that there's interdepartmental communications, and you have everybody rowing in the same direction.
And we call that a communications mindset, right? That we want to set a stronger communications mindset across the organization.
All right, now's that final comments and questions of everyone this time. Okay, seeing no more, thank you again very much, Andrea and Jacqueline, for joining us today and for your report. Councillors, I will now call the vote then again for everyone watching. It's for information that we're receiving this tonight. So all those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much, ladies. On to report item 12.2, which is Canada Day 2024. And to get this on the floor, may I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Sadhu. And I will now invite Director of Community Services, Chris Catania, to introduce the report.
Good evening, Mayor Solomon and members of council. This notice of motion has directed staff to investigate Canada Day as a town-operated special event, coordinating outreach to local organizations, groups, and stakeholders for offering Canada Day activities. The information report presents findings based on initial outreach, level of support, community interest, staff capacity, and estimated budget. With the initial outreach, enthusiasm and support was expressed in participating and also helping organizing events. Staff will continue to further engage the community, including current organizing committee, previous participants, and the community at large. Staff anticipate about an upset limit of $25,000 if we go in that direction. And at council's direction can include in the 2024 budget, along with a future report, with the draft terms of reference to establish a task force responsible for overseeing any coordination of festivities, donations, sponsorships, and fundraising. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Director Catania. Questions or comments, councillors? Councillor Dunstall.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Great report, and I have to say thank you for that. It was extensive, and Manny did a great job as well, Manny Krafka, so thank you for that. I have to say that, boy, oh boy, I received a lot of action on this motion, and the major concern was about the recent exclusion of several New Hamburg clubs and organizations from participating in organizing the Canada Day celebrations held in New Hamburg. Victoria Day is held in New Dundee. Breakfast in the Park is held in Petersburg. And their local service clubs participate in those events. Why? Because communities supporting their local service clubs and organizations, who in turn invest their time and resources back in the community, is exactly what fosters a sense of belonging, unity, and community spirit. Volunteerism is the backbone of our township. We have outstanding service clubs who have volunteered their time for decades. But the age of those club members is climbing, and I can attest to that. We need new and young volunteers. Engaging and introducing our young people to volunteerism should be a top priority for Wilmot and is crucial to the sustainability of our rural township. With the terms of reference, hopefully, we will see a committee that is fully transparent, where all financials are open to public scrutiny, arbitrary decision-making is eliminated, and the township actively recruits young people to volunteer. Inclusive should never mean exclusive. Thank you for your report.
Thank you, Councillor Dunstall. Any other questions or comments, councillors? Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you through the chair. Director Catania, and hats off to Manny Krafka as well for putting this together. I think it was great work. The budget seems certainly reasonable, and thrilled to see the community-based approach and reaching out to the service clubs and echoing the comments that Councillor Dunstall's pointed out here. I think at the end of the day, you know, I look at this and I think it's something that the township can give back to the community and make it a larger, more inclusive event. And ultimately, I think we're the only township in Waterloo region that actually doesn't host our own events. So it'll be nice to see us put our own mark on it and take on Canada Day.
Very good. Any other questions or comments, councillors? Councillor Cressman.
So I guess the only question I'm trying to see the wording that raised the question in my mind. I understand the kind of the ceiling that was put in terms of the grant of $25,000, but if service clubs operate food venues or whatever, is it anticipated that funds will be generated that will go back and kind of go into the kitty, so to speak, and defray some of the $25,000, or does it build a kitty for subsequent years so that the township's contribution is less? I know service clubs have done it various ways. New Dundee did it various ways with the Victoria Day celebration, and I'm just kind of wondering if that is being considered.
Through you, Mayor Sullivan, to Councillor Cressman, and we will address that obviously when there's a task force that's set up, and there would be anticipation too that with the different service clubs and sports organizations, community groups, that would be something that would be on the table when it comes to offsetting costs and looking at in-kind contributions, different things so that we can make sure that we're providing an event.
Councillor Dunstall.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I do know that the service clubs that it did attend a meeting were more than willing to give part of their gate to cover the expenses. My understanding is this is obviously not a nonprofit, so it would just be to cover any costs incurred above the $25,000, whether that be a piece of the gate, a piece of whatever they sell, whatever it is. They really did step up and say they would have no issue with making that type of commitment.
Very good. So I think that would be pending this passes tonight in further discussion and to be determined with terms of reference. Director Catania.
Through you, Mayor Salinas, just one final note. There's still obviously going to be more engagement that has to take place. There are still a lot of other, like even the current organizing committee, different service clubs and groups that haven't been consulted as well. That will get all brought into the equation. And as well, just to give everyone really a heads up, it's an upset limit of $25,000, but really it all depends on the scope of the event. And, I think something like this, you'd probably want to start something that's attainable, manageable. And once you have a task force in place, we know who the contributing partners are to the table and what can really be had for Canada today.
Great. Thank you very much. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you. Through the chair, Director Katani, this report is designed just to be received for information, but obviously I'm looking at the calendar here. We're potentially not too far off from having to look at organizing this event. At what point do you think a task force needs to be formed, or in your mind, what next steps need to be taken to help move this forward?
Through you, Mayor Sullivan, to Councillor Wilkinson, bring forth for the budget, obviously, for 2024, but at that same time, looking at a detailed report from the clerk and myself for terms of reference for this task force. And we really wouldn't want to go past anywhere, late into the fall. So looking into November, December would be the latest. Obviously, we know with planning events, they do take several months, sometimes even up to a year. So we want to really take advantage of that if this moves forward.
Councillor Wilkinson.
To the chair and the clerk, do you require an amending motion to give direction on this?
Through the mayor, yes, we'll need some direction on that. An amendment could be done to direct staff to bring forward in terms of reference to, just looking at the dates of the next meeting and see what's possible. We could likely do the next meeting. That'd be fine.
Then let's put it on the floor to give direction.
Sorry, just to clarify, you want to give direction to staff that they bring back a terms of reference for the October meeting is the amendment you want?
To be clear, when we say terms of reference, we're talking about a more detailed report that would detail out what a task force would look like in preparation for discussion during budget.
Through there, that's correct. We would give you information related to the terms of reference and what the committee structure would be, followed by a plan for recruitment for that committee, which would probably be about a month long. And then you would see a follow-up report after that, likely into the first week of December, appointing a committee.
Okay, so that amendment is moved by Councillor Wilkinson. Do I need a seconder? May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Dunstall. So all those in favor of the amendment asking for that timeline of staff? Okay, and that carries unanimously. And any other questions or comments before we vote on receiving for information of this regular report? Okay, seeing no more, all those in favor? And that carries unanimously. And just to clarify, if anybody has any issues, my apologies. That was the motion as amended that we just voted on. Does anybody need us to redo the vote or to change their vote? Okay, thank you for bearing with me on that error there. Great, so on to item 12.3. And the recommendation is that report COR 2023-59 be received for information, and that policy CL 15-1 pregnancy and parental leave for council policy be rescinded, and that the pregnancy and paternal leave for members of council policy attached as Schedule A to staff report 2023-59 be approved, and that the township's procedural bylaw governing councillor attendance be amended to reflect the pregnancy and parental leave for members of council policy. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Cressman. I will now turn it over to our clerk, Jeff Bunn, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mayor Sullivan. As part of our ongoing review of township policies, the current pregnancy and parental leave, my apologies. Yeah, pressure here. For members of council policy has been reviewed, and staff are recommending an updated policy for council's consideration. The original policy, adopted in 2019, has been updated to provide greater clarity in terms of the definitions contained in the policy, as well as greater detail on entitlements and the process for members who may wish to take a pregnancy or parental leave during their term of council. Likewise, the policy addresses the legislative authority for council to appoint a temporary regional councillor should the head of council be on leave. This policy aligns with various sections of the Municipal Act 2001, particularly Section 259, 267, and 271, and is a required policy under the Municipal Act. I'm happy to take any questions that council may have.
Questions or comments, councillors? Okay, seeing none, I will now call the vote. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Correspondence, we did have one item which actually I did want to make a note on. So the item is from MPP of Waterloo, Catherine Fife, and she's requesting support for her Bill 21, which is Fixing Long-Term Care Amendment Act, also affectionately known as Till Death Do Us Part. I just wanted to note that for the October meeting, I am going to actually be bringing a notice of motion for us to support this, as I've had a lot of residents reach out about the importance of being able to be in long-term care with your partner as you enter that stage of life. So I think since we locally are about community building and placemaking, I do really believe that this is an important bill that we advocate, that it's made it through its second reading. It's just sitting waiting in purgatory at the moment to go to committee. So I do think it is important, and I look forward to bringing that motion forward for October. And then we are on to our bylaws. So the recommendation is that the bylaws as attached to the agenda be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed in open council. And just to note, this is the procedural bylaw. Any questions or comments before? No? Okay, may I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. We have no notices of motion this evening. We do have some announcements. So beginning on September 21st and until September 30th of this year, we invite you to celebrate the fall harvest in Waterloo Region's countryside. This is a 10-day dining event promoting delicious local menus that incorporate produce from around the region and prepared by establishments located in Waterloo Region's townships. There are 6 restaurants and eateries located right here in Wilmot, and that is Hurley's Country Farm Market, Imperial Market and Eatery, Mimi's Cafe, Scranton Dram Scottish Pub Public House, Melina's Grill, and Baden Coffee Company. For more information on this, please visit tastethecountryside.ca. I also wanted to make note that it is Gender Equality Week, and it serves as a powerful reminder of our commitment to building a country where we all as individuals, regardless of gender, have equal opportunity and rights. This week-long observance, celebrated in the last week of September, is a call to action to address gender-based inequalities, promote inclusivity, and celebrate accomplishments of women and marginalized genders. Gender Equality Week encompasses a diverse range of activities, from informative workshops and panel discussions to art exhibitions and community events, all aimed at raising awareness, inspiring change, and fostering a society where gender equity is not just a goal, but a lived reality. It's a time for Canadians to come together, reflect on the progress made, acknowledge the work that remains, and recommit to advancing gender equality in every aspect of our lives, from the workplace to our homes and beyond. You can visit ywkw.ca/gender equality resources for Waterloo Region for additional information on some gender equality resources. And I have one more note to make before I pass it over to councillors. It is National Seniors Day is coming up. For Ontario, it's celebrated on October the 1st, and it's a cherished occasion dedicating to honoring and celebrating the invaluable contributions of our senior citizens to our province's rich tapestry of life. This special day, like I said, is observed on October the 1st, and it offers a moment to express our deep gratitude for the wisdom, experience, and resilience that seniors bring to our communities. It's an opportunity for Ontarians to come together, recognize the vital role seniors play in shaping our society, and ensuring they continue to enjoy a high quality of life filled with respect, dignity, and the support they deserve. On National Seniors Day, we reflect on the lifetime of achievements and experiences our seniors bring to the table, emphasizing the importance of intergenerational connections and fostering an inclusive and caring society for all. Not written down, but I did mention it before. Just a reminder, September 30th, so this Saturday, 8:30 a.m., our Truth and Reconciliation walk and gathering. And councillors, do any of you have? Okay, we will go to Councillor Cressman first.
Just a reminder, the busy harvest season is starting. Corn silage followed by soybeans and then corn. So there's going to be a lot of slow-moving vehicles on the township roads and regional roads. And the flashing lights can be sometimes confusing. So I would say approach with care. And as well to our agriculture community, remember you're sharing the road and take care as well.
Thank you. Councillor Dunstall.
Through you, Mayor, I would like to thank Councillor Sadhu for looking at me when you mentioned that Seniors Day was coming up, because I know that he appreciates the value of the experience that I bring to the table. So thank you, Councillor Sadhu.
We appreciate the value and experience that all of our councillors bring, regardless of age, or at least I certainly appreciate it all. Any other announcements councillors want to make this evening? Okay, seeing none, we did not have a closed session, so no business arising from that. Our confirmatory bylaw, may I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Cressman. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. And finally, adjournment. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Wilkinson. All those in favor? And thank you very much. We're adjourned.